Hey everyone, Britta Albert here. If this is your first time here, I am a spiritual transformational life coach, and it's my goal for this channel to help you overcome the obstacles that are standing in the way of you living your best and most authentic life. In today's video, I want to talk about shadow work. Now, shadow work is a word that is thrown around in the spiritual community, and if you're not familiar with shadow work, it can seem a bit intimidating, for lack of a better term. Shadow work has nothing to do with demons. It has nothing to do with ghosts. It has nothing to do with what goes bump in the night. Shadow work, or the shadow self, is really a term that is meant to describe the parts of us that we bury, that we push away. And our minds will only let us be so cruel to ourselves. Believe it or not, as cruel as you can be to yourself, your mind will only let you reach a certain threshold. So when we're raised to think that something is wrong, or something is bad, or something is shameful, or something is sinful, those are aspects of ourself that we immediately just think is bad or wrong and must not be in us. Especially when it comes to things like sex, and you're taught growing up that sex is something that should be saved towards marriage, and I'm not saying that it's not. However, the condemnation for sex outside of marriage is what really messes up a lot of people. When especially you are in middle school or high school and you are experiencing certain thoughts and emotions, these things come up inside of you, and if you're raised in a religious mindset that it's bad or wrong or sinful, you are more likely to push these things into your shadow self. And it's like a mental detach almost from those aspects of yourself. So what is a shadow self made up of? Well, for an example, if you are a liar or have lied before, you're going to get triggered by people who are liars. If you see somebody who takes advantage of someone who is weak, either animals or children or the elderly, and it really triggers you and it makes you passionately angry, there's somewhere inside of you that you've done the same. Either when you were a small child and you didn't know the difference, you made a mistake, you experienced this pain and trauma and shame, disgust, whatever the feeling is towards yourself. And your brain says, well, I can't function if I'm that deep in self-loathing, so I'm going to detach mentally from these things. So what your brain does is it shows you externally the things in other people that are really internally within yourself. My stepdad actually used to tell me this when I was growing up. He said that whatever I hate in somebody else, I hate within myself. And I had no idea what he meant. It took about 17 years for me to figure out what the heck he was talking about. He would tell me that all the time. And I never forgot it. I couldn't even conceptually understand what he was talking about. And he was talking about my shadow self. What triggers you in other people, if you're really honest, it also is within you. So when we get all up in arms about things like politics or judgments that we have on other people, our brain doesn't want us to go that far with self-loathing. So it shows us those things that are a part of us externally. So that way you can look and be like, oh, well, that person right there, they are the ones that are liars. They are the ones that are lazy. Can you believe the laziness of that person? Can you believe the gall of that person? And you're talking about yourself. Now, I'll let that sink in for a moment. And if that triggers you, well, there you go. You just realized something about yourself. Now, shadow work requires a lot of courage. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we all think that we want happiness. But happiness is an emotion. It's not a state of being. You do not live in happiness. You cannot. There's a time for everything. There's a time for joy. There's a time for mourning. There's a time for peace. All of these things. But if you were to lose a loved one, you would not experience happiness. All right, well, say they fought a battle with cancer and they suffered for a very, very long time. You might have peace about them passing, but you're not going to be happy. You might have joy knowing that they're no longer suffering, but you're not going to be happy that they're gone. Not if you really love them. You're going to miss them. You're going to feel sad. You're going to experience mourning. And those emotions, they require your respect and your acknowledgement so that you can heal and mourn and experience those things in a healthy way. So where yes, you can choose happiness in every now moment, there are things that you can look around and you can decide to be happy because it's an emotion. It's not a state of being. What people are always searching for, they might call it happiness or joy or contentment or things like that. But in reality, what we're all searching for is peace. Now, if that's a new concept for you, just think about it for a moment. If you are going through hell on earth, you are experiencing the worst case scenario that your mind puts out for you. And instead of experiencing fear or anxiety or depression, you experience peace. No matter what comes your way, no matter what you go through, you have peace. Is that not ultimately what we want? Well, how do you attain peace? It can be so frustrating when you're trying to get peace, but you're trying to force it. It can't be forced. You can't force the shadow because that's what you've already been doing. How well has that been working for you? How successful have you been? Does it ever stay buried? You might bury a part of it, but it's going to come and it's going to show its head. If you bury sadness, it's going to come up and show itself in the form of anger or aggression. If you've ever seen a child that is very, very, very angry, we all know that those are the children that need love the most desperately because those are the ones that are hurting. It's very visible, the armor that everyone has. You can see it. But it takes great courage not to face the demons, but to be honest with yourself. That's what takes great courage. That's what takes humility. Now, you don't have to go around telling everybody the things that you have inside of you that you struggle with. No, it doesn't have to be that way. It's just letting go of the resistance and acknowledging that things are there and getting very, very, very specific. Because you can be triggered by something that you actually can't identify with. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, well, if I know I've never done this thing, for example, when the war in Syria happened, I remember hearing it on the news, and I'm gonna get choked up now just thinking about it. And everybody who was fleeing and they were trying to find places to go, and you know, that big news story that we all saw where the child washed up on the beach. That's heartbreaking. That's devastating. And I hate the people who caused that. Now, do I really hate them? No. We could say, well, why? Why wouldn't you hate them? Why shouldn't we hate them? Shouldn't we hate war? Shouldn't we hate murderers? No. Now, does that mean that I condone it? Absolutely not. I understand that the action of murder does not serve the person doing the murdering, does not serve the person being murdered, does not serve our world, does not serve me. And then I can act accordingly or have inaction, depending on the circumstances of what's necessary. Now, you can say, well, what about killing in self-defense? Well, that's killing in self-defense. That's not murder. I'm talking about murder. I've never killed anybody, whether it's in self-defense or murder. So that's not something that I can really identify with. So what is it in me that gets triggered and wants to use the word hate that I identify in them? This is where you really have to get honest with yourself. Say, okay, so I've never murdered anyone, but why am I so triggered about this? What is really upsetting me that I just can't let this go? What is the emotion? What is caused by the murder? You could say that the person who went through the experience of being murdered, they experienced fear. They may have experienced torture. They experienced pain. They experienced deep anxiety, knowing they weren't going to live. Then I get a little better of an idea. Okay, so it's not the act itself that I identify with, but the person who is inflicting this pain on other people. Well, have I ever inflicted pain on somebody? Let me sit with that. Well, I have 6 sisters and 2 brothers. Growing up, it was kind of chaotic. I'm sure at some point I hit somebody or punched somebody or pulled hair or whatever. I know at some point in my life, I have hurt somebody physically. I have caused somebody physical pain. And how did I feel about myself when I did that? Did I feel joy in the moment? Did I feel justified? Maybe if we were having a cat fight and I was really, really angry at my sisters, maybe I did feel joy. And then after everything kind of settled, then I felt really bad. Then after that wears off, I experienced shame. It was something that I wanted to hide. I didn't want my sisters to tell on me. And why wouldn't I want them to tell on me? Because I knew it was wrong. Do you see what I'm saying? So what I can identify with that I hate in a murderer is within me. And it's not necessarily the act that I'm identifying with, but it's the causing somebody pain, because I remember somewhere, whether it's a conscious memory or not, somewhere deep inside of me, I also have the capability of hurting somebody and harming somebody. And I know that pain and that shame that I still have not forgiven myself for. Now, this is an example because I don't really feel triggered by murderers because I have forgiven myself. So let me be transparent and share a trigger that I have. I am triggered by mothers who don't put their kids first. I am deeply triggered by mothers who do not consider the well-being and safety of their children. Why am I triggered by that? Because I have made my own mistakes with parenting. My daughter was being hurt at school, and I had to help her with how to cope with it to the best of my ability. But because I was a single mom and I worked and lived in the community which she went to school, and I worked very closely with the schools with my job, I was afraid of going up there and making waves. I was afraid to stand up for my daughter. Now, I knew that the school year was almost over and that the next year she'd be going to a different school because I was going to marry Stan, my husband now, and we would be moving and going to a much better school district. But I cannot tell you the guilt that I have, the shame that I have for not going into the school, screaming my head off and raising hell, demanding justice for my daughter. Now, this was small children. I think they were third graders. And do I blame the children? No, not necessarily. Kids are mean. Kids are jerks. It's the parents and the teachers, and all of these different things that I have in my mind, and I'm going back and forth, and I try to forgive myself. I try to rectify the fact that I was scared. I was scared I was going to lose my job, because even though I didn't work 24/7, everybody knew who I was, and everybody knew the company that I represented. And I represented my company 24/7 because I worked and lived in the same community in a very, very small town in rural South Carolina. So I was afraid to lose the financial stability that we had, the one job that I had that was keeping us afloat. And I regret that. But at the same time, I know that had I lost my job, where would we be then? I don't know. But because of that, that's something that I still have not forgiven myself for. And I'm still working on it. It's very, very difficult to forgive myself for not standing up for my child. So when I say specifically mothers, because I am a mother. It can be any parent. But when I see somebody making a decision to have their child in harm's way and turning a blind eye or claiming to be naive, I get very, very, very angry. And it's because I see in them, they are reflecting to me something that I hate within myself. So with all of this said, how do you achieve peace? How do you get from self-loathing to self-love? Well, I can guarantee you it's certainly not overnight. And you wouldn't want it to be. That would be so painful and so jarring. That would not be an experience that I would wish on any person, because it's complicated. Our wounds are complicated. If they were not deep, if they didn't weave into other parts of us, they wouldn't be there. So it's not a thing that happens overnight. It's a thing that takes time. And this is true healing. It's accepting, the first part is accepting all aspects of you. Can I accept that there's a part of me that did not look out for the best interest of my child? Yes, I can. Can I accept that I am also a mother that loves my children deeply, and because of that experience would never allow something like that to happen again? Yes, I can. Can I accept that I still feel shame and sadness about that situation? Yes, I can. Can I accept that the selfishness that I see in somebody else exists within me? Yes, I can. And that's part of the process, is accepting yourself fully. The bad and the good, these again are just perceptions. These are labels that we place on things based upon our own judgments. At the end of the day, it comes down to what serves you and what does not serve you. What serves others, what does not serve others, and what serves our planet, and what does not serve our planet. Those are the things that you need to ask yourself, and forget the good and bad or evil and not evil. When you can fully accept all that you are without trying to change it, without trying to fix it, without trying to do any of that, with no judgment and complete love, then you are able to heal. And once you've healed that, you don't ever have to heal it again. There may be other aspects, as you've seen from the last 2 videos that I did, that continue to come up in different ways. But each time that you do it, you get closer and closer to that root. And you don't have to do it again. So I hope this video sheds some light on what shadow work is. It's not as scary as you might think it is. It's not as intimidating as sometimes it can be made out to be. It's not something mysterious. It's not something evil. It's simply you having the courage to be honest with yourself and to look at yourself fully, without judgment and with love. Once you do that, you are able to release and heal your shadow self. It is a long process and it can take years. But the end result is peace. When you see somebody who is so solid on the foundation that they stand on, and their faith is unshakable, it's not that they're necessarily even brave or courageous. They just have an inner knowing that everything is going to be all right. Some might see that as naive, but at the end of the day, if you could go through life without anxiety, without depression, without self-loathing, without fear, wouldn't you want to? I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Thank you again for being here with me. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And if you can think of anyone that could really use this message today, I ask that you share this video with them and help us to continue to grow this community. Y'all are amazing, and I appreciate you so much. Have a great evening, and I will see you next time.